Jerry and Charlie, thank you all for coming. Hope you enjoyed the show. We will see you next time, where we'll be back.
Today is Friday, August 30th. The Mets have finally concluded their 10-game stretch against some of baseball's best teams, and they went 6-4. So why does it feel a little bit off? I'm one of your co-hosts, Jack A.K. Jolly. Joining me from his hotel room in New York is Jerry Blevins, getting ready to do SNY pre and post for the next week. Jerry, how you doing?
I'm lovely. How are you, sir?
I'm pretty good. I can't complain.
Yeah, this is, I get to see you from afar, but I got to hang out with you last night,
Yes,
which was
sir.
lovely.
It was
We got
nice.
to have dinner and went and watched a play. It was great. It was a good night, man. I was glad to be in contact in human form, not your digital age or
Not
old
stuck in a
school
box.
dinosaur age.
Right. Yeah, no, we were true New Yorkers last night. Hit the Broadway scene, had a nice meal, had the Mets game on during our meal because we're true fans and we're true workers,
We
right? We take no days off. We got to watch the Mets clutch victory late in the game. Jose Iglesias coming up big there. Diaz bouncing back. There's going to be a lot of Diaz talk on this show.
Luckily for us, though,
Yes.
the game ended before our food got there.
Yes, that was huge.
So we would have turned it off, I promise. We would have
Exactly.
interacted.
We still talk to each other. Don't worry, guys. So yeah, the Mets go 6-4 against the Orioles, Padres, and Diamondbacks. And if you're listening to this show, you probably watched all those games and you saw the ins and outs and the emotional roller coasters and the decisive wins and the decisive losses. Two games really stand out to me, and I think that's going to be a large part of our discussion today. And it was two games that we lost, and I feel bad harping on the negativity, but it did feel like it felt like two things to me. One, it felt like kind of ominous signs for September of like, okay, the Mets are not fully out of the woods with their bullpen issues that once essentially tanked an entire month. The other thing for me, in a positive light, was that both times in these crushing losses, it didn't seem to affect the team the next day, which I think is really important going down this stretch of, must-win series after series, because if you let one day bleed into the other, it will affect the team's play, and you can see it in their play. So to go out and win a game after both of those crushing bullpen losses, I thought was really big, but it doesn't change the fact that in the 8th and 9th inning, the two guys that we're supposed to trust the most let us down twice in games that we could have won, and then this could have turned into an 8-2 stretch, which would have, I think, changed everybody's outlook.
Yes. Here's a couple of things. They won series. They went 6-4 on the road.
Right.
This was a big challenge. They can play with the big boys. They played really well against the Padres. They played really well against the Diamondbacks. Two teams that, people, they were saying it's a lock. Like, these are the best teams.
Right.
The Mets looked better than them, I think. Both of them. Didn't turn out that way. In these games, we're 3 back from the Braves. They matter. They matter. So it does stink. I'm not going to pretend that those wins won't, when you look back on it, yesterday we were talking, I was highlighting that the A's series, and then the two losses, the blown leads on this road trip, those are 4 games that we're up, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, it stinks. But they won. They're playing really good baseball. They're getting really good starting pitching. Their lineup looks solid. They just gotta get hot.
Yeah.
This has got to be the month of September, the end of this run. They've got to start winning. No more, just win a series, move on. This is like, you got to win every game.
Yeah.
This feels like that time.
Let me ask you this. Not looking at all, what do you think their record is in August right now?
How many days in are we?
It's the 30th. They've played 26 games.
16-10.
13-13. And I'm not going to lie to you. It feels that way. It feels like we're a little bit treading water. We have days where everything looks complete, like the offense comes together. Everybody does a little bit, like in one of the San Diego games, they had 17 hits and just pitched well, and there's no way to be beaten when you do that. And other days you get the Joe Musgrove game where the offense essentially shuts down. You don't get a good start, and, things are out the wayside. The big thing for me is the close games. You mentioned it, like there was a graphic by SNY Mets about just the games that they've lost in August that they were winning late. You had the Angels game with Huascar Brazaban, the A's game that you mentioned that I still think the Mets definitively should have won that game 3, and that would have changed a lot, I think, winning that series. And then the 2 games I mentioned before between the Padres and Diamondbacks. That's 4 wins you can add to your total, and suddenly you're breathing down the Braves' neck rather than giving them this comfort room that they've now attained through a good month of August that they've had. So it stinks. Like, scoreboard watching is a very deflating feeling because you hate to not be in control of your fate on a day-to-day basis. But at this point, that's kind of what we're doing. We're in September. We're basically the last National League team not in the picture that can be in the picture. And a lot of it is going to come down to, what do the Braves do? They lost last night after, holding a 4-0 lead. They blew that game, and that got us back to 3 games. But, on a day-to-day basis, your outlook towards the end of the season changes. It ebbs and flows. So unless the Mets can harness some electricity again like they did in June and July, it's hard for me to see them, closing the gap soon. I think I think this is gonna go until the end, which is not for the faint of heart. And not Mets fans have endured a lot throughout the years, but this is gonna be a tough stretch here. But they do have a softer schedule coming up, and I just hope that the bullpen can get right. They can get a few more bodies back. Obviously, they just lost a couple bodies, most notably Dedniel Nunez, which stinks. But you got to just keep trucking. I really like Nimmo's quotes after the Arizona loss of, sometimes you get knocked on your ass. It's about what you do the next day. And I do think that philosophy is true for the Mets right now.
Yeah, 2 things on that. Number one, that's the philosophy. That is a character of this team.
Yeah.
They have bounced back. They have fought in games after poor showings. This team has grit, and they have the ability, leadership from veterans like Nimmo and Lindor, and leadership from Carlos Mendoza, the way they go about their business every day. Leadership from the front office. These guys show up every day ready to play, regardless of how they performed the day before. They're ready to win a ball game the next day. So that's number one. Number 2 is, I still believe that they control their fate. Obviously, they're 3 games back. There's 48 games to play, I believe. If they go real hot, they control their own fate. They we're still going to scoreboard watch. I don't think all 3 teams are going to run out this. And if the Mets put on a torrid hot streak and go, insane here, that they can't win some ball games and make that ground up. So that's what you're hoping for. That it's a tight window, but I still think if they play good enough, they won't have to worry about at the end, hoping the last day that the Braves lose. But it's really tight. They have to put their foot on the gas pedal now.
Yeah, and they have in certain aspects. And before we go into player specifics, I did want to bring this up because I put out a little poll on my Twitter, and I wanted to ask Mets fans what they thought. Because you mentioned, however many games left, however many you have to win. This was before the Arizona series started, but I said I think it would take at least 87 to 88 wins to make the playoffs this year. It's different this year than last year. I think last year you only needed 84 if you were the D-backs and the Marlins. This year is a little bit more competitive. With 31 games left, the Mets would have to go 19-12 to accomplish
31
that.
games.
Yeah.
31.
They've already gone 2-1. So that's a nice start, which means for the rest of the way, they have to go 17-11. You have 12 games against the White Sox, Reds, Blue Jays, and Nationals. And then you have 16 games against Philly, Atlanta, Milwaukee, and Boston. So basically, kind of an even split between competitive teams and non-competitive teams. And the Mets have to go 6 games over 500 in that span. Regardless of what you think of that, I wanted to lay that out for everyone listening so you understand the landscape going forward. So I now agree a little bit of they do have some control over their destiny. They have a Braves series. They have 7 games with Philly that they can make up some division time. I don't know. It's scary for sure. And I'm really glad we get kind of this 10-game respite.
28 games left. Is that right?
I believe now it is 28 games left on the year.
28 games.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I was way off on my math. That was wild. They do control their fate still, 3 games back. But we're down to it.
Yeah.
This is it. They've got 3 games left with the Braves. That could be the difference here. They play the Red Sox come into town after the White Sox. The Red Sox are in the same boat as we are.
Right.
Trying to win ball games, trying to make up ground right on the border of that last wild card spot. So, yeah, man, it's tight now. So there's definite, scoreboard watching going in the clubhouse now.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about the bullpen woes a little bit and hitting inconsistency. I do think we definitely need to talk about the starting pitching, though, which has been superb from both of our top left-handed guys. David Peterson did it again yesterday, another 7-inning outing. I saw a crazy stat this morning when I was putting together the outline. He's the first Mets pitcher with at least 7 innings pitched in 3 straight starts since 2019. The Mets have not done that in 5 years, which is remarkable considering the names that have come and gone in that time between DeGrom and Scherzer and Verlander and all those guys. This is no longer a blip for me, dude. I mean, we talked a little bit about it at dinner last night, and I'm a self-admitted non-believer in the Peterson bump up a little bit. I don't know where this Mets team would be right now without David Peterson going every 5th day, because we've had so many issues between Quintana's bad month and Blackburn taking a step back and not knowing exactly what you're getting out of Sevy every time, that Peterson has been such a stabilizer for this team when many people, myself included, we were looking for his replacement at the trade deadline. Now he might be your game 2 starter in a playoff series. So I wanted to highlight him because in both series, he comes up with a massive performance between the Padres and the Diamondbacks to get you a split in a series win.
Yeah, I mean, the rotation has been incredible. Luis Severino has been lights out lately. You saw what Peterson's capable of when he's at his best. Manaea has been unhittable at times. Yeah, it's wonderful. And that's what you need. You need guys to step up. The offense has cooled off a little bit. So you need to keep those games close and allow your offense some time to battle back or take the lead in those middle innings. And these guys have been spectacular. This is a big start from Tyler McGill coming up.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten any really positive things from him lately, but they need him now. And I would love to see him step up alongside his fellow rotation arms. So, yeah, they've been great.
Yeah, I mean, you can't say enough about the top 3 there, and you just hope that you can find good outings in between. McGill's last start, 4 2/3, no earned runs, 1 hit at AAA, so that's a little encouraging. Hopefully he can carry some momentum. But it's been a pretty tumultuous season for him. But across the board, like Manaea, outside of those home runs at the end, was amazing in his start in Arizona. That's a really tough place to pitch, a really good offense that you're facing. I still think they lead baseball in runs scored. So to go out there and blank them twice was really big for, like you said, a Mets offense that isn't 100% right now. Like Francisco Lindor is still on his torrid MVP pace. He had a 2-homer game that won them a game in San Diego. He had the clutch home run yesterday to tie the game. He had a 1,000 OPS across this 7-game stretch. But outside of him, McNeil hitting as well, it's kind of been middle of the road to not so good, especially when you get down towards the catching tandem of Alvarez and Torrens. So to get these not only shutout performances, but long performances that have alleviated the stress on the bullpen has been very helpful for the Mets. And hopefully they can continue that going down the stretch here. But yeah, McGill starts tomorrow, and that should be, or today actually, and that should be interesting.
Today, yeah.
A little nervous about that.
I mean, they need him. They need him. All you want from McGill is to keep your team with a chance to win when you come out of that ball game.
Yeah.
however he's got to get there, however long he goes, he's got to throw up some zeros. So
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. There were some injuries along the way. You mentioned Severino. He had to gut out his outing. Actually, a really impressive outing considering the pain he must have been in. He took a liner off the foot, I think, in the second inning. Ends up going 5 once the Mets came back from down 4-0 in Game 2. After the game, he said he was in a lot of pain. He couldn't lie, but he's going to make his next start. He said he was 100% sure, which I like to hear. Outside of that, you have Edwin Diaz going back on the IL, which is very, very unfortunate after just one outing. It's heartbreaking. Yeah.
That one stinks. That one hurts because he looked the part again, and they need that 8th inning guy to step up, and Nunez looked like he was going to be that guy. You hate to see it. You hope he's okay. That might be, a season ender kind of thing.
Yeah.
Pushing him back a little bit too fast, or himself pushing himself back too fast. That's a heartbreaker. They need guys to step up here.
Yeah, I mean, if that is the end of his season, it's a really terrific rookie season for, a 28-year-old guy that has probably played a long time trying to get to this moment. It stinks that it ends that way, and especially stinks when you look at the 2 losses we had in the past 4 games that might have been wins if he's available and healthy and good to go, because you see Jose Budo, who I think is coming back down to earth a little bit after his really nice run in the bullpen. He's been working a lot of deep counts. The walks have been creeping back into his game. And you can alleviate some of that if you have a Edwin Nunez available, who has been, in all facets, maybe the most effective reliever the Mets have had the entire season, at least the most consistent one too. On top of that, you don't hear anything about Sean Reed-Foley. You lose Paul Blackburn as well. It's like the pitching staff has taken some hits, but the one thing I wanted to say is that from the larger scope, this past week at least, the middle relief guys did their job. Like,
absolutely.
Danny Young, 4 scoreless innings, looked nasty for a lot of those at-bats. Reed Garrett, 2 scoreless innings. Adam Ottavino, 3 innings, 1 earned run. Phil Maton, 3 innings, 1 earned run. 1 run that he didn't allow technically. They did their job, and it's kind of go time. I know Diaz is going to be a big discussion point here, and since he came back from suspension, he had been solid. But the Mets have 2 saves in August, and it's not not always for lack of opportunity. There's been plenty of blown opportunities along the way, and it's just super frustrating. And it's nice that we have an outlet where we can kind of air the frustration, but watching those games fade when you let all the games that you could lose go in May. Like, I think a lot of fans accepted that, like, May is what it is, and if you were going to come back, you have to embrace the fact that you can't lose these kinds of games anymore. And the Mets are still pretty much doing it on a routine basis. And it stinks when it's the fault of the 2 guys you're supposed to trust the most at the back end.
Yeah, I mean, those are the heartbreakers. May is what it is. They weren't the same team that they are now.
Yeah.
And these games matter. Obviously, every game is a win or a loss, goes into the record and adds to it. But this, when you see the finish line, when you're playing for a goal, it's different, and they've been inconsistent. So, Diaz looked really good last night.
He did.
I still don't think he's locked in, but his fastball velo looks great. He's relying on it. He's using his slider more effectively, at least last night, trying to keep it away from where it's been getting absolutely killed in the middle of the plate. But yeah, they're going to need Diaz. They're going to need Budo. And then this rotation. So yeah, this is it, man.
Yeah, Diaz goes 17 fastballs, 1 slider yesterday in his save, which, I kind of respect. Just kind of, here's my best heater, here's 99, 100, hit it, do what you can with it, beat me fair and square. Because at this point, the slider does not have the bite that it used to. It's not the slider that secured Mets no-hitters and won them big games in 2022, and I think that the acceptance of that will be helpful for Diaz, because right now it is essentially a changeup, and you can still make that effective if you use it like he did last night. The one he threw Carroll, though, was just so, like, it looked, I said this to you yesterday, it looked exactly like the one he threw Josh Bell in Miami for the game-tying, I think, 3-run homer in that Marlins loss. that looked like the same pitch, bottom of the zone, didn't get out of the zone enough, and you're throwing it to, guys with golf pole swings, that are just going to tattoo it. So it was super deflating to see that happen, especially after Maton looked sharp up until that and got pulled in the 8th inning. But Diaz's quotes after the game were good. He didn't seem like it rattled him too much. He's been there before. He's been in far worse places before, in fact. But they're going to need the best version of Diaz they can get in September. Otherwise, this whole season may hang in the balance, because if you can't get that 9th inning scoreless frame, especially after Peterson and Minaya and even Severino have been so solid, you can't waste those outings anymore. You're out of time, essentially.
Yep. Lock it in. No more blips on the radar. So they need him to be the guy that they saw in 2022. He doesn't have it in him right now, but with that slider that you talked about, he doesn't have the faith in it. He's got to get it done with his fastball, and it looked really good last night. But you're gonna, he's gonna need 2 pitches. It's simple as that. He's gonna need to be able to deploy that slider to keep people off the fastball, but his fastball's playing up right now. He understands where he's at with his repertoire, and he's deploying it accordingly. Hopefully he finds that feel for the slider, and when and where he can keep the damage to a minimum. So, yeah, man, this is the run. This is where we're at.
Definitely agree. I just want to do a little bit of quick maths. All right, so over their past 7 games, the offense averages 5 runs per game. They have a shutout in between there, so it skews that a little bit. Am I wrong in saying that it felt kind of off at sometimes? Like, I know you have kind of the 5-run inning in the first Padres game. You had the big inning in the middle of the Brandon Pfaadt start. I feel like in between, there's been a little bit of inconsistency in the Mets lineup outside of obviously Lindor at the top. I wanted to mention this. Alonso had a couple big hits in both series. Him and Vientos and JD Martinez all struck out 40% of the time or more on the 7-game road trip. A lot of those guys batting back to back. Does the offense worry you at all at this point in time, or are you still confident in these guys?
Worry is not the right word. I don't think I would use, but definitely like Vientos came down to earth a little bit, but he did hit clutch. It wasn't as consistent. Him and Lindor were neck and neck for their consistency. But Vientos has provided it when you need it. Nimmo, who was a huge struggle post All-Star break, looked better. This push.
Yeah, a lot of hard hit balls.
McNeil has pushed. Pete Alonso's had a rough go of it, and JD Martinez as well. It's been different. It hasn't been as dominant of a lineup as we've seen before they went on the road trip. But again, they faced elite pitching, and they did enough. They went 6-4. And they were winning 2 other ball games. They could have been 8-2.
Right.
The team's putting it together, but the bullpen, to me, is those 2 losses are heartbreaking.
Yeah, I mean, offensively, you get a nice home run from Bader in the game 2 in Arizona. Huge. He needed that big time. I think he was 1 for his last 26 or something like that. I had it written here. 1 for 26 since August 15th. Marte has not been amazing since coming back. He's been getting his singles, but not much else outside of that. And then Jeff McNeil has been fantastic. I'm hoping there might be a lineup bump there for him somewhere. But the story remains Francisco Lindor, man. I mean, I feel like I'm taking it for granted almost, because I just expect him at the top of the lineup to be the best hitter day in and day out. But that's exactly what he's been. He's now got a 27-game on-base streak. It's the best by any Mets hitter since 2019. Pete Alonso, who was the last one to do it, had a 34-game streak that year. And in that span, he's got a 935 OPS. In August, he's 4th in MLB for batting average. He leads the NL, 6th in OPS with a 950 clip. He's been remarkable, but it's clear that it's going to take more than just him consistently on the day-to-day basis to get the job done for the Mets offense. You mentioned Nimmo. This was a good series for him, but it is really, really frustrating and really upsetting, honestly, to see how his second half has gone, especially after the All-Star voting came through. He didn't get in. There was a lot of outcry. It felt like he deserved it. It stinks to see him regress this far back down because I think we all know what he's capable of. We know he's capable of much better play at the plate. But right now, he's having his worst offensive season as a big leaguer. If the season ended today, this would be Nimmo's worst season. And I'm really hoping one of him or Alonso or someone at the bottom of the lineup can just make that fire happen again in September. You still got a month to play. You still have a month left to change the narrative of your season. And I do think we saw a bright spot in Nimmo for this series, even some hard hit outs there as well. But I don't know, man. It's kind of go time. It's a little bit go time.
Yeah, I mean, it is go time. What they've been doing is, like, Lindor has been setting the table, and then these guys have come up clutch in clutch situations. Even though they're not putting it together consistently, somebody steps up, and that's what you need. That's what you ask for. Lindor's put this team on his back offensively, and guys have come up in spots, and come through. So that's what you're hoping for. You love guys to get hot and just go on a run. But again, you're winning ball games, and you're putting your team ahead going late into the game. That's what you need. The guys have stepped up here and there. Big hits like you talked about. Bader, Tyrone Taylor looked really good.
Yeah.
And that's something that you need out of the bottom of the order when he comes in. Timely. You need timely hitting, and they've done that, even though they haven't been as consistent at the plate.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think we got a little spoiled in June and July with how often they were just pumping out crooked numbers and everyone was contributing and all that. It's just, I do worry a little bit about Francisco Alvarez though. He had a big hit in game 2. He had the RBI single to keep the rally going that set up the Bader home run. But he still doesn't look like himself at the plate. I think he had some interesting quotes. I think Steve Gelbs did a nice report about how, this is his first real, extended struggle as a big league hitter. And he, like, when people came to him when they were struggling, he would say, don't worry, you're gonna find your way out. You'll be fine. Now he understands what it's like to be lost in the woods, which I do think is important for any big league hitter. But this is a stretch teetering on, a full half of baseball at this point. And this past week wasn't any better. He went just 2 for 20 on the entire week, struck out 8 times in 20 at-bats. It's upsetting for Alvarez because, out of all the guys on that team, he's one of the ones that is the most invested in every single pitch of every single game. And I know he's still doing it defensively, but it's a tough watch for some of these guys. These are your core guys between Nimmo and Alonso and Alvarez, and they're just not fully right now.
Yeah. For Alvarez, hearing some of his comments about where he is in a season, the growth that he's only 22.
Yeah.
Baseball is a humbling sport. He'll figure out what it takes. 22 is insane. He's in his
baby.
Third taste of, he's still a baby. He's in his third taste of big league baseball at 22. Big league pitchers are going to take advantage of where you're struggling and how you're struggling. They're relentless. They're going to take advantage of the outs that you're giving him. He has to make the adjustment. He's very capable of doing that. But yeah, man, the lineup isn't as daunting as it was in July. But they're capable, man. They can do this.
I think they can do it too. Their numbers against sub 500 teams are a lot better than winning teams right now, and that's going to work for the next 10 games of the slate. It's just you get a little apprehensive because these are the teams you're going to be facing if you do make it to October. So you hope that they get enough fire under them to make that all right in the end. Anyone else you want to talk about on the offensive side before we keep moving?
No, I think we covered that.
All right. I want to do a little bit more on Sean Manaea and David Peterson. Manaea is going to get the Game 3 ball in the upcoming White Sox series, which we definitely got to talk about because the White Sox are 31-104 on the season, which is a record I still can't believe. 104 losses before the end of August, Jerry. They've lost 32 of their last 36 games or 36 of the last 40 games. They are maybe one of the biggest disasters we've seen in 20 years. And yet the Met fan in me is worried about this series because, one, you're on the road. It's hard to win any series when you're on the road. It's still a major league team, all that. And, I get the Marlins pit in my stomach. I get the A's pit in my stomach, the Angels pit in my stomach with this team. So I don't know. How do you quell those worries, I guess? What do you think about positively about this team right now?
Well, I mean, you're talking about the White Sox?
I'm talking more about the Mets. I don't think there's anything positive you can draw from the White Sox right now.
I mean, I think we've kind of covered it. You just gotta, like, the starting pitching has been incredible, and that is, the offense took it for a while. The bullpen was locked down when they had their guys all rolling. Right now, it's the rotation, and you hope you get the back end of your bullpen to settle, and you hope you get timely hitting. You got Lindor carrying the offense, and then the guys are coming in. So I'm not worried about the team and how they're playing. I think they're a playoff capable team right now with their starting rotation the way it is. They can win some series, man. But they need the back of the bullpen, and then they need timely hitting. They've been getting it. It's not as dominant of a fashion as they've been playing. We've been accustomed to, so I'm not worried about them. They've been figuring out ways to put the team ahead. But this is it. This is win now mode. You do have to face Garrett Crochet this series.
Yeah.
Davis Martin has looked all right in his starts. But this is a team you've got to beat because they're maybe the worst team in history. Are they still on pace for that?
They're currently on pace to be the worst team in the expansion era. They would usurp the 1962 Mets with over 120 losses if they keep the pace.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at their lineup, and it is rough go. So you've got Benintendi, who's their best player. Luis Robert is not.
Yeah.
Luis Robert, is that do we know?
I think it's Robert,
exactly? Yeah. Okay. Lubob, we'll call him Lubob Jr. He's still, a dangerous hitter, but for the most part, man, they should mow this team down, regardless of who's on the mound, because they don't belong on the same level as the New York Mets. So you gotta you got to look to sweep here.
Yeah, you got to act like you're the better team in this scenario. And there's caution that comes with every series, but this is a series you not only need to have, but to pick up 3 wins here while the Braves play the first place Phillies would be massive. You have Miguel going tonight, and you hope that you set him up for a nice situation. You have Quintana in game 2, revenge game for him, former White Sox. And he just had his best start in, the past 6 weeks, essentially, with that clutch outing against the Padres. And then you have Minaya in game 3, who has been probably, other than Peterson, the Mets' best pitcher on the staff. In August, he's got the 3rd best opponent's average in the National League at 190, the 4th best whip at 0.91. That was the biggest hitch in his game the first half, entirely. The walks and base runners allowed and long pitch count innings that he had, those are basically out the window now with his new conviction as the lights shut off in my studio. Jerry?
Is it a motion sensor? What are we doing?
It's a motion sensor. I guess I was too still. That's happened to me before.
Yeah, it happens on occasion, my friend. Yeah, look, I don't want to. Manaya's been incredible. Peterson has been incredible. Severino, has stepped his game up as well. I still think he's the best pitcher that the Mets have. But you've gotten clutch performances. Blackburn going down with that comebacker that got him. That's tough because he's pitched really well in a Mets uniform. You need McGill tonight. You got to look to sweep. You never want to think sweep. But this is the worst team in baseball that we've seen for a long time. They are playing for absolutely nothing. So, and you've got it all right in front of you. So this is starting tonight, McGill. You hope you get 5 good innings out of him. You talk about setting guys up for success, putting them in advantageous position. This is the worst lineup in baseball.
Yeah.
and you've got to come up and do your job here. This is, if you want to be a part of the Mets' future, this has got to be a good showing from Tyler McGill.
And this is going to be the Mets' best opportunity to make up ground, at least for the next week, because after the Phillies series that Atlanta is playing right now, they host Colorado, they host Toronto, and then they go to D.C. Before they play the Dodgers. So the next time they play a playoff team is September 13th. That's that's a 2-week window that the Mets will have to basically just keep pace. In that window, they have the Red Sox, Reds, and Blue Jays as well before they play Philly. You don't get that Braves series until the end of the year. You don't get it until the 24th of September through the 26th. And of course, it's at Truist, because why would it be home? If it's an end of season series against the Braves, it's going to be on their turf, because that's always what happens. But you got to be alive when you get there. And this weekend may seem inconsequential. It may seem like a nice respite for the Mets. In my eyes, it's very important. You passed your test. I feel bad discrediting what they did over the past 10 games based on a couple bad losses, because you did go 6-4. And I think in not knowing any details about the games themselves, you would sign up for that as a fan. You would sign up for 6 wins in 10 games against 3 teams that are going to be in the postseason. But right now, your objective is to just scoreboard watch and beat the teams that you should be beating. And the Mets, to their credit, have done that pretty much all season long. They've beat the bad teams. They just haven't always beat the good teams. And they just demonstrated that they're capable of doing that. So you're set up well in the series after. You'll have Peterson and Severino in that series. You should be geared up for one of your better stretches since basically the end of July here. And I'm hoping they can come through and bring that to fruition.
Yep, I think they are a complete team, this Mets ball club. They are thin in the bullpen. That is clear. That's their biggest weakness. And their lineup's going to have to come up. Like we've laid it out all on the line. They just have to win ball games here. And so this is the biggest series, or the biggest game. Every game will be the biggest game in front of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, just win, baby.
I mean, it's a blessing and a curse. The games matter a lot this deep into the season. The season was pretty much over in June last year. Are you looking at any of the waiver guys as potential adds for the team? I feel like we should sprinkle this in.
Yeah, there's a dude named Rogers that I would love to see in that bullpen. I have a feeling he's not going to make it.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
Look, it goes in reverse order, waivers, that kind of thing. Yeah,
I think AL gets priority too.
Desperately. What's that?
I think AL gets priority too under some of the new CBA rules. But boy, I couldn't believe the Giants essentially, punted on some of their roster to clear some space. Taylor Rogers hit the waiver wire. He's got a 2.45 ERA in 50 innings. I'm sure the Mets bullpen would love to add that to the mix. But the larger point here that I want to make is that I still don't think the Mets did a bad job at the trade deadline. I think that the guys they added had future years of control and had a lot to like about them. They haven't all worked out so far, but I think things are starting to turn a corner a little bit. Like Maton has really demonstrated that he is a guy. Brazoban had a nice outing since coming back up. Stanek's been pretty much okay since, that really tough start to his Mets tenure. And then Blackburn, outside of a couple blips, has had some nice starts. It's just, you want a little bit more, especially if the injured guys look like they're not going to be coming back. You want just a teensy tiny little bit more. And Taylor Rogers feels like that guy, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I wouldn't count on it, but if he gets there, what an addition that would be. You just need your guys that you have on the team to step up. You need Budo to lock it back in. You're going to need Maton to step up into a more significant role. Reed Garrett needs to figure it out because he could be an absolute weapon. So yeah, those are the guys you have. This is the team you need to count on. It is what it is as far as the construction of the team goes. You think about Brooks Raley, being out, Drew Smith being out. Yeah. With Nunez and SRF being out, and I think Reed Foley is his birthday today, so shout out to Sean Reed Foley.
Nice, we miss you, Sean.
Yeah, but you're missing those guys in the bullpen. You need guys to step up. They've shown that they are capable. It's a tough call for Carlos Mendoza on who he goes to, and that's kind of that's the hardest part about being a reliever. First of all, being available.
Yeah.
Injuries they happen, but the guys that they have, you got to push the right buttons. Mendoza's been excellent all year. I think as far as free agents go or signings go, I think Mendoza's one of the brightest spots that you could actually have because he's going to be with this team hopefully for a long time. I think he is an absolute find as a manager. He's been pushing a lot of the right buttons. And he'll put the best guys in the best chance to win, and you hope that you come through. So that's where we are in the season. Got to win ball games. You got the White Sox, the worst team possibly in the history of the game, in front of you. You got to win at least two. Looking for a sweep here.
I'm glad you brought up Mendoza's like decision making in the past week, because I do think a lot of the moves he made between pulling guys early and setting them up in certain scenarios, I think bullpen wise he pressed all the right buttons. He just didn't get the right results, and that's just going to happen sometimes. And if you're a manager, you bear the brunt of that blame regardless of how it goes. One last question as we wrap up today's show. Either side of the ball, who do you think is going to have the biggest impact on this upcoming series? Who do you think is either due or has shown you that they've been playing good ball in August and you think they're going to provide the most impact? Curious.
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, the easy answer is Lindor because he's just been, MVP level for such a good run. Like basically all season, he's been so locked in. It's got to be a righty. You're going to face. Yeah, and I want to say JD Martinez is the guy to come through. I think he has a big series against. This is the kind of team that he can crush. They need Alonso or JD Martinez to kind of step up. So I'm looking for JD Martinez here to have a signature moment as a Met to kind of help this team push to where they need to go. He's a guy they're going to rely on, his leadership. He's been here before. It would be nice for him to show the rest of that lineup that you can come up big regardless of where you've been all season. The entire season weighs on what's happening now. Lock it in now. Be prepared, and do some damage when you get the chance.
I like your answer there. I kind of went similar vein in my head. I went Mark Vientos, who, admittedly, since moving to the 2-hole, has been great. He's just been striking out a ton. You're facing a pitching staff that has struck out less batters than any team in MLB, probably any team in the last 5 years, 10 years, anything like that. Perfect opportunity for him to not only get right and get over that hump, but also get hot. He's struck out 4 times in his last 10 games. And that's, they're piling up a little bit. So between him and Alonso and Martinez, we mentioned the punch out stat before. Hopefully they can avoid running into that, get some more hard hit balls and get their spirits up. But I'm also going to shout out Sean Manaea because you're in a scenario where that game 3 could matter a lot. Garrett Crochet on the bump. That's your biggest chance to suffer a defeat to a really bad team because he's been very good. He's been terrific. And Manaea's been your guy lately. And that also could be the sweep clinching victory. So I'm looking at him as potentially a huge start. Like he's set up to face a bad offense here, but also, you're riding a really nice streak from Manaea right now ever since he harnessed the powers of Chris Sale. I think this is one of his more important starts of the season. He's facing a lefty that can match him up. He's gone 6 2/3 his past 3 starts at least. He's been punching dudes out, not giving up a ton of homers. Sean Manaea needs a big start on Sunday, and hopefully by then, the Mets are on pace for a sweep. We'll see.
Yep, absolutely.
We'll see, Jerry. We'll see. A lot in the air. Nervous but excited. Go beat the Sox.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is, as a fan watching this, you have a chance to make the playoffs. Meaningful games in September. That's what you live for. This is, guys have gone their entire careers without a chance to play meaningful games in September.
Trevor Plouffe.
This is the best time to be a player. Like this is the fun, renewed life. The dog days of August are nearly behind you. And this is when you turn it on. This is what it's all about. My first few years in Oakland, we were so bad. Like it was like last year, every year, your season's done in June and July. These guys have a chance to make a push to be on a special team. making memories, and they just got to win ball games. So this is fun. This is fun as a player. This pressure that we feel, this anxiety of what's going to happen, this is when, these are the things you dream about as a player, being on a meaningful team that has a chance to do something special. So yeah, you step up in the moments, and that's what being a major league player is all about. These are the memories that you make. So this will be a fun month, hopefully.
Hopefully. And thank God August is over. Cannot end soon enough. August is just a tough month.
Let's end it on a high note. Let's end it on a high note.
I agree. You can get that 500 record to a nice 3 games over this weekend. So White Sox, Red Sox, Reds, Blue Jays. Get fat, Mets. Tell us who you are. Show us who you are. I'm nervous, but I'm not nervous, Jerry. I'm optimistic.
I can tell you're very nervous and not nervous.
Yeah. Super not, but also super nervous.
I think you embody everything that the Mets fans are feeling in general. So
I'd hope so. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. If you did listen on YouTube, consider subscribing and leaving a like. That helps us out a ton. I said this last episode, and I think we got like 50 new subscribers, so I'm just going to start saying it.
We appreciate
every
you guys.
episode.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys just hitting that button.
It really, this isn't my side of things, but that stuff does help tremendously. So thank you guys.
If you listen on a podcast app, leave a review, leave a rating. We appreciate that as well. We'll see you sometime next week, hopefully with news that the Mets are on a hot streak. Hopefully.
That's right. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.
Shea Station, Jerry and Charlie. Shea Station, Jerry and Charlie. Riding through the airwaves, bringing you the heat. Come on, do your best band. Now get up out your seat. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. Now you're listening to
Shea Station.